Hello and welcome to our first episode of Public Safety Connection. The police and fire departments here in the city of Prescott are starting this monthly series to get ahead of relevant issues for the community. And today we've got some exciting things to talk to you about related to a work study session that we just completed. With me today is Deputy Chief Jon Brambila and HR Director Brandon Nunez. And we're going to be talking specifically about public safety recruitment and retention. We had a great conversation with our council on Tuesday of this week to discuss those issues. And we really want to kind of get into, notifying the public and letting you all know what we're doing proactively as a city to stay ahead of that, to continue to have a safe and great community to live in. One of the biggest challenges that we're currently facing is in our public safety dispatching. And John, do you want to maybe talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Across the board, it's a really tough position. It's a difficult position. It's a difficult position for us to recruit into. And where do we find people that want to go into that profession that really don't have, an idea about what a public safety dispatcher is? So we've had to get really, really creative in our approach to that. We partnered with Yavapai College this year. We created a dispatch academy, just trying to find different opportunities to introduce people into this career path, because it's not something I don't think people are graduating from high school going, I want to be a dispatcher, right? Mm-hmm. But once we expose them to it, we're now starting to see benefits from that. But it's been a struggle. It's been a challenge for us over the last at least 2 years trying to get staffing in our dispatch center.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, though. I mean, that position is so integral to both public safety departments we have here at the city. I mean, they take the types of calls that when people dial 911, they handle every call that comes in. So that's a big responsibility for folks, but they provide meaningful work. And for an employee, that gives you a sense of pride in the work you do. It is very important to the city. And something that's kind of unique about that opportunity as well is they work 24/7. So I think that fits a lot of people's schedules. You could work nights, you could work days. Your schedule is kind of all over the place, and I think that does help for people who have maybe different needs outside of the workplace. And I don't think a lot of people know about the job. It is a difficult job. You have a lot of skills. You have to have technical skills, communication skills, manage stress, manage logistics. But again, you're supporting police and fire. I mean, there's not another position like that at the city. It's very important.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Brandon, because John, do you want to maybe cover just how critical our dispatchers are, particularly when we're talking about firefighter and officer safety?
So we have a regional dispatch center where we have police and fire. We actually dispatch for 8 total public safety agencies, and it's very different dispatching from a police dispatcher to a fire dispatcher, but both extremely critical. We talk about our folks are first responders, your folks, my folks, we get on scene first. But the real first responder is that dispatcher picking up the phone and starting the whole response in motion, right? And if they're not getting the information that we need, that you need, it makes our response that more difficult. So having somebody in there that can ask the critical questions and really be able to get the information out of somebody who's probably dealing with something extremely traumatic, not something they planned on starting their day calling 911, and then we task our folks to answer those calls, get the information, address, telephone number, descriptions, and then getting that out to our folks. And that is a difficult job. And like I said, on the fire side, there's so much that as a police officer and going into the dispatch center as the lieutenant over there, I had to learn like the protocols that you guys have, very different than what we have. Yeah. And to watch them work in there, it's pretty amazing. Definitely have to multitask and be able to make critical decisions really, really quickly.
Yeah, and you are part of the family, and I know it's a difficult job. Not everybody knows what they do, and so people get hired in there. There's a big learning curve that goes on, but the people who get it, they get the bug for it, and they stay for a long time. I mean, we have some very long tenure in that department. We have people who've been there, 10, 15, 25 years. So it's kind of a niche and a good opportunity.
Yeah, and I would agree, and it probably, it would serve well for an episode, I think, on our public safety Facebook Live, all to itself, and maybe bring a couple of dispatchers on and talk about what they do. I think it's such an important position. So a couple of other things that we should probably talk about is, we've mentioned this before, it definitely holds true with fire. I know it holds true for PD, and it extends into the city, and that is hiring for character and training for skill. We are facing a significant headwind in finding qualified folks to work in these positions, and partially definitely on the fire side. We currently require a Fire 1 and 2 certification, as well as at least an EMT basic. And that takes quite a bit of time and resources to get those certifications. So one thing we're exploring right now is green academies. In other words, bringing folks without those certifications in that meet our character requirements and training that skill so that we have a highly qualified, but more importantly, character-based workforce. From both of you, how does that strike you? What does that do at PD? How does that fit into the HR policies?
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, this is very near and dear to my heart because we actually train our hiring authorities on how, like, on what to look for when they're hiring folks, and we actually, as a city, organizationally, we target soft skills because what we do at the city is we're not selling a product. We're not selling cell phones or another product or something of that nature. We provide service to the community, and so that means that when our citizens need to trust us, you need to have great soft skills. And what I mean by soft skills is teamwork, attitude, customer service. We need to be able to trust you, and so that's what we look for, and that's what we target. We will train you. I mean, the police department or fire department, we will train you on your skills. We just need to know that you're a good character, and if you look at the police department, they need to be able to trust you. Mm-hmm. So that's a big part of it. And so, for anybody that's out there, we recognize that you're probably not going to have fire skills or law enforcement skills. We're going to give you those skills. We just need to know that you have effective soft skills. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would add to that in that when we look for candidates, we always utilize this statement of, we want people who are here to serve others. So someone with a servant's heart, right? Yeah. Like the soft skills Brandon's talking about. We're going to send them to the academy. We're going to teach them the things they need to know about the letter of the law and the color of the law and the authority that we have and how to shoot a gun and how to drive a car. Those are great skills to have, but we're going to teach you those. We're looking for character. We're looking for quality candidates who care about this community. Because we care about this community, and that's more important to me than someone who has all those hard skills already. We'll teach them. Yeah. We'll teach them, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I think that's probably important for those watching to know that if they themselves or someone that they know is interested in exploring a career change or looking at something different, that not only is public safety here in the city of Prescott a pretty attractive career path, but jobs in general at the city of Prescott. We're making a lot of changes in the human resources arena around employee culture and benefits. Do you want to maybe briefly cover what somebody that is looking for a job might expect here at the city of Prescott in general?
Yeah, so that's one of the unique parts about working for your local government, right? There are certain trade-offs. You know when you come and work for the city that you're going to have a good benefit package, you'll have a retirement package, and you're going to have a good pay. And specifically within your departments, you have different avenues for skill development too. So you can earn more compensation by acquiring more skills and go in a different tier, and that's endless. You have stuff all over the place. So if you come to the city, you'll come out just green, right? You're not going to have any of these law enforcement skills or fire skills. We're going to train you. We're going to send you to more training, and as you acquire more training, we're going to compensate you for that. So, and I think that's unique compared to the private sector. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do some modifications probably in the next budget year. But right now, we feel like we have a really good competitive program going.
Mm-hmm. John, do you want to maybe talk about what it takes to do the initial training for a police officer, the recruit academy, maybe the first couple of years on the job?
Yeah, when coming into this profession, like you said, when we are looking to hire the quality applicants, it's a pretty substantial background investigation that we do into our candidates before we hire them. Once we do hire them, then the state of Arizona, which is through the Arizona Peace Officers Standards and Training Board, that's who certifies officers in the state of Arizona. So every police officer in Arizona has to go to a basic academy. we're very fortunate here that we have an academy with Yavapai College. We have a partnership with all of our law enforcement partners in Yavapai County, along with the college, and we send our recruits through a basic training academy. The state requires, they just upped it. It used to be 585 hours. That were the basic academy. Our academy actually was at 800 hours before any changes were made. And just recently, they went through, revamped the basic academy. They've now pushed it to just over 650 hours, but we're still well over that basic training. But it's here. We have a sergeant who is assigned to the academy. We have our officers, our sergeants, our lieutenants who are instructors at the academy. So we get a hand in that initial training. So once they complete that training and they come back to us as a certified peace officer, then they go through field training. And we have a field training program within the police department that is an additional 14 weeks of essentially on-the-job training with a veteran officer who teaches them policies and procedures of the way that Prescott PD does things. So, from start to finish, we're a year.
Yeah.
From the time we hire somebody to the time we turn them loose on the street as a solo officer, it's 1 year.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult thing to try and keep up with the amount of people that we're losing.
And it's interesting because on the fire side, very similar, depending on whether you in-house an academy, even with the folks that have certifications, we will bring people on at least into an 8-week academy to teach them the Prescott policies, the way that Prescott Fire works. If you throw a paramedic into that mix, that's even more significant because now they have to go through a field training program since they'll be doing invasive skills under a medical protocol. And so it's that first year, to your point, that is extremely intensive. But it's because we care and we want to invest into our employees. I think it's a very important thing for people to understand is just how much these jobs have shifted into professions as well. And I think for folks to understand really what entails this diversity in public safety today, because the public has expected much more from public safety servants, even just over the last 10 years, but definitely, for instance, since September 11th, 2001, things have shifted significantly in public safety. And some of those things have made the job, I would actually say, even more attractive just because of that diversity and that exposure that you now get.
I would agree from an employee standpoint that I think that's attractive because you're not locked into a certain specialization.
Right.
I mean, whatever you like to do, you can maximize that skill. I mean, if you look at the police department, you can be a canine officer. If you have bilingual pay, I mean, there's different tiers and different specialties that you can get into and specialize yourself. I mean, they have a SWAT team, and there's just a lot of cool stuff to do. I mean, the job can be fun. I mean, it is fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's very fun. So let's talk about some of the hard realities, right? On Tuesday, we spoke with council, and we had, I think, a very productive conversation to put this out on the public policy level at Discord, because it is something that not just Prescott is facing, it is something that is happening across the country. It's more difficult, not just in general, and we'll talk about the workforce just a little bit here with Brandon, but then in the public safety sector, that's even amplified quite a bit. So Brandon, do you want to maybe talk about sort of the national employment picture and how that's impacting us?
Yeah, so we're in the most complex, dynamic workforce environment in the history of the statistics that go back 30 years. So there's more jobs available than there's ever been available. I think the last time I looked, there's 10.7 million vacant jobs in the country right now. That's a lot of jobs. So 10.7 million. Then you have an increase in jobs. You also have a decrease in unemployment. So there's this huge gap. And so, you have to come up with people to fill that gap somehow. But the problem right now is there's such a gig economy going where there's just lots of ways to make money. You can pick up a lot of side gigs doing whatever. And so we're more at risk on the government side because people want to come to us when they know they're going to get a stable paycheck, stable benefits, great retirement. That's what's one of the draws to government. On the private side, though, right now, there's just so many opportunities that everybody's just shuffling around in the country. And so that's why I think we're more at risk on the government side of things. But again, I think we do provide meaningful work out there. And that's the benefit we have, like where you have tangible results, the work you do every day, you see it in the community. Not nowhere else gets that. Yeah. And that's the coolest part about my job in HR is I get to see all the different services. I mean, I work with solid waste. what would our community look like without garbage truck drivers?
Absolutely.
I have a toddler. I want my garbage picked up. So you see these tangible results in your community, and that's what we have. I just don't know how we capture that and get people interested. I mean, that's really what we need to do.
Yeah. John, do you want me to cover a little bit about specifically policing and how employment pictures have changed significantly over the last few years?
I started this career, this profession in 1999. And when I look back at the day that I tested, there were 200 applicants there, and there was one open position. That has completely flipped in the last probably 10 years to where we have multiple positions open, and we're getting less than a dozen people showing up for those. So where we used to just sit back and wait for people to come to us, we can't anymore. We've had to come up with a lot of new strategies and working with Brandon and HR and changing our recruiting, and we go looking for good candidates now. They're out there. There's still a lot of quality people that want to do public safety jobs. Sometimes we just have to go find them because they're just not coming to us.
And this is a very public safety friendly community.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, people love public safety here. And so that's an advantage for us too. Like John said, I think we just need to somehow get the word out, and whether that's every single person who's a firefighter or a police officer, you may have to be our recruiter now, and who knows what that looks like. But we're going to come up with solutions. We've been actively changing our processes, but it's just not good enough, but we'll get there.
And speaking of the challenge, specifically in numbers, John, how is Prescott PD looking right now in terms of open positions, both in the dispatch center on the civilian side and on the officer side?
Yeah, so those numbers we look at every day because they are fluctuating as we see people leave the profession for a lot of different reasons. But currently, right now, we're down 6 vacancies. We have 6 vacancies with no bodies in them. Mm-hmm. We have 4 in the academy right now. So essentially 10 people on the street that we don't have. And in the dispatch center, we did add some new positions this year, but we're down 11 dispatchers. And the challenge to getting them in and getting them trained, their training is very similar to the police department, the fire department, and getting them in and getting them trained. Mm-hmm. It's not an overnight thing. It's not even a couple week thing. It's a several month, up to 6 to 8 months to train a dispatcher just to take calls or just to dispatch, because there's 2 different sides to that. We have call takers and we have dispatchers, very different jobs. So it is definitely challenging, and trying to get those positions filled has a whole lot of other implications, because that means we're that shorthanded. Somebody's working, and there's a lot of overtime that's being used right now because of that.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. And those numbers are real. I mean, a squad is what, 6 officers and a sergeant?
Should be 7 and a sergeant,
okay.
Because with the way the city's broken up into beats, so we really should have an officer in each of the beats that we have designated by geographical areas, and a supervisor and 2 rovers. Mm-hmm. And
so you're down a squad.
I've almost been 24 years here. And when I started, I think we had more people on the street than we do now. So it's becoming quite concerning to us.
And I'm going to get to that piece, because I'm sure the viewing public would like to know a little bit more about how that impacts the citizens. But first, let's talk a little bit about the fire department. We're in a similar situation, probably not far behind you. Mm-hmm. We currently have 5 recruits that are going to be starting our fire academy on September 6th, and those are for 5 openings. And our hiring list now is down to almost 4 to 5. We have a SAFER grant that we're waiting to hear back from to see if we can fill 8 additional positions. So if you do the math right there, I'm out of options.
Yes.
So it's definitely time to get creative and time to extend. Before we get to the impact on public safety piece, you mentioned something, how long it takes to train somebody in public safety, whether it's dispatch, firefighter, or police officer. And we had a conversation with council where we emphasized quite a bit that pouring time, energy, and even resources into retention
Yes.
is therefore an extremely important thing, because the people that we have on all sides of the public safety aisle are so good in this community. I think people need to hear that, just how amazing their officers and firefighters are, and for us, investing into that to make sure that those folks stay is absolutely important. What are some things that is attractive for officers these days where you feel like there's some difference makers to keep them on the force?
Well, Brandon alluded to it earlier, and I'm a Prescottonian, so born and raised here, almost third generation Prescottonian. We have that to our advantage. We have so many people that grew up in this community that really gives us an advantage, because this community means something to us, right? And we want it the way it was when we grew up. We want it to be safe for our families. So that's a huge attraction to come into work here, and really trying to focus on our homegrown, our local folks that are coming up, they're growing up here, they want to raise their families here, and we want to attract them to come work for an agency that really is supported by the community. We, like Brandon alluded to as well, we have lots of opportunities within even our small department. I mean, in Arizona, we're kind of a medium to small size. We have 80 sworn officers, but we have every specialty that all the big cities do. You can work patrol. You can work on in the traffic division, ride a motorcycle. You can work in the community service division, and we pay you to ride a mountain bike all day long, right? You can be a detective if you want to get into investigations. If you want to be a canine and work drug investigations, we have task force officers that are assigned to drug task force, fugitive apprehension task force. We have honor guard. We have SWAT. We have mobile field force. I mean, we have everything that the large cities offer, just on a smaller scale. And those are things that you get to do outside of your normal job. So you're a patrol officer, but you're also on SWAT. And you get called out for SWAT calls, which that's an exciting thing. And it's very attractive for people to see even a smaller agency like us having lots of opportunities for folks to do some really cool things.
And I've had that discussion with Chief Bonnie before about, about other agencies and comparing the two. And she talked a lot about that, how if you work for a big organization or a big city, you might be locked into one specialty or one unit. Here, you have so many different specialties where you could be working a parade downtown one day, and then might be doing detective work, or you might be assisting somewhere else, so that you do get a lot of variety. And I think variety is huge in employment as well, because you never get stagnant. There's always something to learn, and here you get that all in the context of living and working in a beautiful area. So our climate is another thing. I'm surprised we don't get more laterals. I really am, because who wouldn't want to work here? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Just walk downtown. That's great.
Yeah, and I think let's transition a little bit into the impact on public safety, right? We mentioned that we're having difficulties staffing all of the positions, and we, at the same time, don't want to say the sky is falling, but we want to raise public awareness around this, because it is time for us to get very proactive. Like you mentioned, the time of waiting for the candidates to come to the public safety counter is done. It is gone. And so we have to get out there, and part of that is to paint the realistic picture. But let's talk a little bit about what that means to the citizens of Prescott. Are they in imminent danger of not having service? I think we need to talk about that, because that's probably something that's on the mind of folks, and maybe the mentality and the mindset of, especially the public safety leadership, I think is important to convey here.
Yeah, you guys both mentioned that this is not just a city of Prescott problem. This is a national problem. However, we can be concerned about what's going on nationwide, but the influence we have is right here in our community. So that's where we focus our attention. That's why you and Chief Bonnie were here on Tuesday to inform our elected officials of what's going on. The bar is set really high for us in this community as far as public safety on both, I think, the police and fire side as well. I think I've been here long enough to see that it's not just us going out and enforcing the law, and it's not just your guys going out and putting out fires. We are part of this community, and we are called upon to do a lot for this community that really has nothing to do with enforcing the law or putting out fires, right? And that's the expectation that the community has of us, is that there's the old saying that the police are the community are police. That holds true in this community.
Yeah.
And we don't want to lose those levels.
Right.
We don't want to lose the ability that we have to be a big part of this community. We don't want to be a reactionary police department. We want to be proactive.
Yeah.
We want to be out there on the street and working together with our community, not just responding to calls.
Yeah.
That's not what we're about. And that's, unfortunately, that's the concerning part, like Chief Bonnie said on Tuesday. We're heading that direction a little bit, and we need to get in front of it. And that's why you guys had the conversation.
Right.
Yeah, and and to your point about the people who are doing the work now, I mean, we don't want to burn them out either. That actually has me more worried about anything is, I mean, people are working a lot of hours right now to fill in gaps, and that's not a sustainable model in the long run. So, it's hard to stop turnover because it's infectious once people, they need to see some positive things happening. And so we have a duty to act and fix it. And I think we're getting there, and we're actively working to make it better. But, again, I think in the long run, we really need to think about the people who are doing the work now. That's a big reason why we talk to council, because we've identified that it could get worse.
Yeah, you said it. Our folks are amazing, right? And when we call, they answer the phone and they come in, regardless.
Exactly.
They because they're dedicated, they're loyal, they care about the community, they care about what they do, and they will be here even though they just got off a 10-hour shift. They'll come right back in to help out with that parade or the whiskey off-road race or whatever it might be, because they are that dedicated to what they do and to protecting this community.
And very similar on the fire side, we're having very similar issues. A lot of mandatory overtime, a lot of burnout, a lot of really people working right to the limit of what I'm comfortable with. And we have to address that. One of the things we're doing on the fire side too is we're starting to look at not just doing Plan A, because yes, we need new fire stations in North Prescott. There's no doubt about that to address response times. But we need to also get smarter about triaging calls differently, finding low acuity call mitigation, looking at community risk reduction. Police is far ahead of us on this with crime prevention. I think we need to think about partnering with the community to help with that too, to help alleviate that. Just to close out here, a couple of things I just want to round out our conversation with. We did talk to council, and we did make some recommendations around the way forward. Brandon, do you want to maybe kick some of that off, and then we'll talk a little bit about the partners here?
Yeah, we have solutions in place. We've done a lot of different things. I do imagine us getting kind of back to old school recruiting, hitting schools. These are long-term solutions, and we've been doing a lot of extra things. But in the short term, I think what we're going to do is, we're going to look at some compensation, benefit packages, things of that nature to try to get some support for. But a lot of this is going to have to do with just being more active on the recruitment side of things. That's really what we're looking for. And so, this is a good forum for that as well, just to kind of kick it off. So you'll be seeing a lot of HR, and you'll be seeing a lot of the police department and fire. I know we're going to get out there, and we're actively working with other partners within the community to help us along the way. And that's kind of where we're at right now. But I do imagine some of these solutions are going to be long-term. It might take a couple of years to see the results of that, but we're actively shaping those out now.
Mm-hmm. What about for police? What do you think are some recommendations that are going to work to help us with this issue?
I think the conversations that we're having between your department, our department, and HR, trying to come up with solutions together, that's really the key, because what affects us is affecting you, and trying to be creative and focusing on what do we do to retain the people that we have, because we don't want to lose those people. They need to feel supported. They need to be appreciated, and for those that have been here for a number of years, that's a lot of institutional knowledge we don't want to lose. So we've got to focus on that, and working together with HR to look at benefits and pay packages, and making sure that we are the leader in the region, and really making ourselves, because I think on the front end of that, then that will help solve some of the recruiting when they see the compensation and things like that are drawing them in, and having us stand out among other law enforcement entities here in this area. So working together with them and working through the city manager and our elected officials to get their support for that, I think that's the key to making this work and to keeping us where we need to be.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because the city of Prescott is responsible for far more than public safety, and we need to balance the pressure on the general fund when we're talking about competitive compensation, especially in a job market the way that you just described it, Brandon. That's a very difficult thing for us to do, and I also want to make sure that I go on record here to acknowledge the fact, right, that we're asking for resource allocation. That's a public policy debate, as you mentioned, between the city council and the city manager, where they're subject matter experts to try to help solve the problem and bring solutions. But at the end of the day, it is the citizen, the voter, and their elected representatives that are ultimately the decision makers on this, and will be a continued active part of that conversation moving forward. I think that's probably really good to round us out for this first episode. A couple things I do want to mention in this. If you want to know more, please check the City Council website. You can see the work session and the presentation from Tuesday. Also, this Saturday at the Central Arizona Regional Fire Training Center in Prescott Valley, there will be a public safety recruitment fair. If you yourself watching this are interested in learning more, and this is not just about law and fire, but also EMS, and all of the agencies in the region are going to come together and host a job fair that day, please go ahead and check that out on our social media links. You can find the information. I believe the event is from 9 to 12 that morning, and we look forward to seeing some of you out there. As always, be safe. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode.